Hi, welcome to another episode of the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I have with me today Dr. Helen Sairany, and she's an association management pharmacist. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's lovely to see you. And first of all, I'd love to know how you came into the pharmacy field. So, maybe just tell us a little bit about your background, where you were born, where you went to school, and how did you choose pharmacy in the first place?
I would say I'm one of the very few pharmacists who took the long route into the profession. I knew I always wanted to go into the medical field, and that is something that was just how it started. My parents always inspired me to go into the profession as well. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I did a few rotations and volunteer work in hospital setting, in dental clinics. And I realized that blood and I don't make good friends, but I always was good in numbers and fascinated by chemical structures and things like that. So I realized maybe pharmacy is the right route for me. Um, I decided to do a bachelor's degree first. So I went to one of the liberal arts schools in Atlanta, Georgia, called Agnes Scott. And I'm glad I did that because the liberal art world kind of opened up my mind into the world and exposed me to a lot of things. So pharmacy wasn't a rushed decision immediately after high school. It was more, I kind of explored the world. I majored in biology and psychology. I exposed myself to so many various aspects, and I realized that pharmacy was definitely the right thing for me. So that's how it started, I would say. More like an inspiration for me, at least.
Wow, amazing. So did you grow up in Georgia as well, or where were you born?
So I am a first generation immigrant, and I came to the United States at age of 13 under the asylum status. My parents were forced to leave my country of origin, which is Iraq, and I came to United States through an asylum status from the U.S. government, and we were settled in Georgia, and um, and from there I went to high school and I went to undergrad, but then for pharmacy school, I went to Northeastern. So it all started in the South, I would say, even though I don't have a Southern accent, but it started in the South. And I would say I made my way up to the East Coast and went back home after I got my trainings and then back to DC to serve the profession.
Awesome. So I love how you said that you went to liberal arts school and you had these different majors, and then you chose pharmacy school. So what was that missing piece for you after liberal arts school? Did you know that you don't want to go any further in biology and psychology and you just need this new field of pharmacy? Or like, why did you pursue an extra degree after your first one?
So that's a very good question. I think everybody, if you ask me personally, now a lot of people would disagree with me. I think everybody should consider a degree in liberal arts education because school is not about hard skills, and I feel like we don't do enough. I don't like to call it soft skills. It's more about human skills, and I feel like liberal arts kind of exposed me to that. I get residents, I get students, and I would say the chief complaint is they need extra help in those human skills. So I feel like I come at it, I went to school, to pharmacy school, um, and I was at an advantage because I went to a liberal arts school where they exposed me to everything: public health, critical writing, history, geography, where I started developing an appreciation to everything in the world. And that partly explains that diverse, understanding that I have, that I'm not just focused specifically to one aspect of pharmacy, but more everything: mindfulness, meditation, pharmacotherapy, lifestyle changes. And that's because I owe it back to my liberal art education and the background that I was exposed to. So, in a way, I would say my degree in biology, my degree in psychology kind of feeds itself into my education from Northeastern, where I got my doctor of pharmacy. So they were all in a way complementary to each other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the diversity that you're speaking about, both of
Mhm.
experiences and how you're applying it to the field of pharmacy. So, and I also know that you are a world traveler. So, can you talk to us a little bit about how you weave that into your professional and personal life?
So diversity, equity, and inclusion is a topic of my expertise and a topic that I'm really, really passionate about. And I don't think anybody can develop an appreciation of diversity if you have not explored the world, have not, interacted with locals in all these other countries. Um, your mindset starts to change because you see how others perceive life. You see how others practice. How they live their day to day. It's just you start to understand that the American way is not the only way, that people live differently, they have different cultures, different practices. And I think the only way you can start looking at the world from different lenses is by exploring those lenses, by visiting those countries, looking at people, living with them, interacting with locals. And perhaps my favorite thing about exploring all these countries is the interaction with locals. I don't speak every language out there, but I would say the interaction definitely has been a huge asset in broadening my understanding when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when I teach this topic, that is the angle I take at least. So if I had all the power in the world, I would encourage every student to have like at least a year of study abroad, because that the knowledge you get from living abroad is just, it's invaluable, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, I was lucky because in my pharmacy school, I had the opportunity to study abroad for 6 months.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, for a semester, so it was only 4.5 months, but it was just, like you said, invaluable, just
Yeah.
life-changing experience. And I was the first class of pharmacy that was ever offered this because our curriculum, as you know, is super intense. So they would only offer it to other majors, but not us. And I was like the pilot pioneer group that they offered it to us in our second year, and I took it. I took the opportunity, and I think that's exactly what it taught me. Just like when an opportunity presents itself, you just say yes, and then
Exactly.
you figure
Exactly.
out the rest.
Exactly.
And just like living in these different places, and we got to live in 3 different places, so it was 5 weeks in another
That's
country.
amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. It gives you that perspective that, wow, I didn't think something like this would exist in other parts of the world. And then when you come back, it's, at least for me, it gives me that rebirth experience. You start fresh, you have a different outlook at the world. And of course you come back with so much gratitude for this country, because um, only then you understand that we need to be so grateful for all the benefits that we have here, the healthcare system, the access to quality education and things like that, because different countries have different access to care. So all in all, I would say it has benefited me a lot in my diverse outlook at how I develop programs for the pharmacists in the country, as well as my outlook at the world as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the reason we have a healthcare system is so that we can be healthy and happy and enjoy life to the fullest, and live our best life in our best years and sustain our health and happiness. So
Sure.
we have
Yeah.
we focus a lot, I think, on the physical. So
Yeah.
if you have a good physical body, you have that potential to live a great life, but it also matters what's going on spiritually and mentally. So if you have a chance to have a different perspective, a different outlook, and giving you like an appreciation and gratitude for what you didn't even realize
Exactly.
you had or didn't realize you should be grateful for, that's when there's something switches, and it's like the best antidepressant is just a shift
Exactly.
in perspective.
Yep. Totally. Yes. I would agree. I would agree. Yeah.
So how did you start traveling and how much time have you spent abroad?
Oh gosh, it started really early, I would say, and there was a lot of resistance from family, I would say, and I still get resistance. And I know I blogged about this because the number of question I get from people, but you're a female, how do you do it all by yourself? And I think there is a challenge in the whole uncertainty process. Like I love to put myself out there, and I never thought about, well, I'm a female, I need to be careful. So I constantly get asked, do you just do it by yourself? You must be very brave. That's what I constantly get. And I think it's just the joy and challenge that I find it to be really, really exciting when you put yourself out there. You try to figure out the route from A to B, not knowing the language and trying to communicate with whatever it takes to get that local understand you, to see what you're trying to accomplish. So that itself is just brings joy to me. There is no such thing as language barrier in my dictionary. I think if you really want to connect with the other individual, it's like the love language that comes from the heart, you know. Um, as far as how long I've spent, it depends, honestly. One thing I like to do is when I travel, I like to be gone for at least 2 to 3 weeks, because I like to expose myself to places that is not quite austere, but not so developed like Europe and America, because um, like I like to see places with so much difference, rich in culture, and for that to happen, I need to give myself enough time to kind of explore the spot and give it justice. Um, the last spot I was in was in Cuba, I would say, and it was right before COVID-19, and I was there for about 10 days. So I just showed up to the island with, with just cash because you don't have access to any ATM machines or bank accounts. So I just had a sum of cash, and I got a rental, like a rental car, and I just drove all around the island, and it was just amazing. And I learned so much from locals, because Cubans are one of the most educated people in the world, and people tend to they don't understand that the national gross income of Cuba comes from the intelligence. They're intellectuals. So basically, let's say when Italy, for example, was hit by COVID-19 really bad, it was the Cuban doctors who were sent to Italy for a rescue, but they actually provide the training to other countries, and in return they get food, they get clothes, because again Cuba is under embargo, as you're aware. So that is how the country gets by, is using the brains of their citizens and training other doctors and other healthcare providers, and for return they get food and supplies and things like that. So that was fascinating. My Airbnb, she was a physician, so I would talk to her every day, and she would tell me how she would have gone to all these places to train other providers, and what that meant to her country. So I find value in the quality of my encounter with locals. I am gone usually 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, sometimes if my company allows me to do that. And that's because when you're gone so far, you want to just invest as much time as you're able to, because sometimes it takes 2 days just to get to a place in the middle of nowhere. So, but before COVID, I would say I would make at least 2 to 3 international trips a year. But post COVID, I would say all my travels have been canceled, unfortunately, until further notice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was just going to comment on that. And it seems like you're choosing very remote
yeah,
places that don't really shine in the sun a lot in terms of like being a number 1 travel destination, but
yeah.
you find like special connection to the people and the culture there.
I really do. I do. And people often ask me what is my favorite country, and I find that to be extremely difficult because I find every country to be special in a different way. It's like every woman is beautiful, every country is beautiful, and there's different standard of beauty in their definition. So but I would say yes. I don't I'm not crazy about civilization because I want to come back and
Yeah.
have an appreciation for civilization. I like to disconnect myself from the social media and internet and all that, because that's what I talked about. When I come back, I feel like it's a rebirth because I've been so disconnected from the world and civilization for weeks. So when I come back, it just feels good. It's very healthy for your mental state. At least that's been my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you have to disconnect in order to reconnect
Yes. Yes.
and like really activate the parasympathetic maybe and like just completely
Totally.
relax and
Totally. Yes.
get
Yeah.
into it and
Yeah.
keep doing it. How many countries have you visited in total?
So I lost count, but I feel safe to say more than 70. More
Wow.
than 70, yeah. Even though I have a hard time saying 13 to 14 European countries, because after so many countries in Europe, you feel like it's the same, you know. But I would say definitely more than 70 so far. Yeah.
Wow. And yes, you mentioned that you blog about it. So I'm going to have your blog in the show notes for people to check out. And I love how you also link diversity and healthcare in
Mhm.
traveling and your kind of input and what you're learning from other countries, just like what you were saying about
Totally. Mhm.
applying it or possibly integrating it to what we're doing here. So I'd love to know, what your experience in college was like with pharmacy, and then what was your career path and trajectory like to lead you to be part of APHA?
So that's a very good question because a lot of students ask me that, and I give them hope because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And it became so problematic that my parents were like, "Are you sure you want to be a pharmacist?" With 6 digits and loans, right? I didn't see myself as a hospital pharmacist. I didn't see myself in pharma. I didn't see myself in retail. And again, I have all respect for all these sites. I'm not saying, it's about me. So my family were like, "Okay, so what do you want to do?" And my answer was like, "I don't know. I just don't." So it was something bigger, something that was different. And I've always felt this way about a career path that I've chosen for myself. It's always been non traditional, I would say. And that is when actually I packed my stuff and I left for northern Iraq and western Syria in 2010. It was immediately after my graduation and where I got my training in ambulatory care slash academia. And I told my family that I will only be gone for a year. I promised 1 year, but little did I know my year got extended to 3 years. And I called my family, I remember, from overseas. And I remember telling them that I just love what I do so much and I'm never coming back to US. And they said, "You've officially lost your mind." But unfortunately 2013 is the whole unfortunate incident of ISIS happened. They pretty much occupied the region, and that is when my safety was in jeopardy. So State Department required all the US citizens holding a US passport to head back immediately, because I speak Arabic, I speak Kurdish, but I have an accent. So they knew I was an expat in the region. So my safety was definitely concerning to the embassy. So I came back, and again, back to square one. I still had no idea what I wanted to do about my life. And then APHA actually, they recruited me because um, they were fascinated about my experience overseas, and how I took a leadership role in transitioning the pharmacy curriculum from a bachelor's of science to doctor of pharmacy, because they were just so inspired by how America does the pharmacy program. So I was part of that. I was meeting with the ministers and all the government offices, and that's something very similar to what I do now. And my supervisor, I remember, she literally asked me to accept the position, and I was a bit surprised because it didn't feel like an interview. It felt like they were asking me to consider the position instead of me asking them to consider me for the position. So that's how APHA started. Honestly, it was immediately after I came back from overseas with my 2 suitcases, my combat boots, my camouflage pair of pants, and I had nothing, just 2 suitcases, 7 years ago. So, and here we are. I'm still with the association and have grown tremendously, I would say, in my role. But that's how it started. Yeah.
Wow, what an amazing
Yeah.
story. And
Yeah.
can you elaborate a little bit more about what you were thinking when you went directly to Syria and Iraq, and then what kind of job or position you made and you created for yourself there?
Sure. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And this goes back to the challenge and people find that to be extremely hard to understand, at least as a single woman. And I was in my mid-20s when I left for overseas. And honestly had no idea what I was getting myself into. I would just stop by, I remember going to this random diabetes clinic with like lines of patients standing for their metformin, right? And I'm like, oh my God, there is no HIPAA regulations, there is no patient privacy. You have 20 patients in this itty bitty cube or tent in a refugee camp, whatever you call it. I just knew that the region has suffered a lot from conflict, and there was volume and supply not meeting the demand. So I was going to go meet the demand that they have. Um, so I just put myself out there and I talked to whoever. And I think the fact coming from the US kind of helped. They're like, oh, she's American. The little girl thought I was a Hollywood celebrity. I don't know. But I would say my favorite experience practicing overseas were those little girls. There were patients who would wanted to have me measure their blood pressure. And again, pharmacists have a lot of prescribing authority. And I find that to be extremely hard because pharmacists don't have any therapeutic experience in the Middle East, but they have so much prescribing authority. Like you can go to a pharmacy and they'll give you anything you want. But
Right.
in the US, here we are, we have this wealth of knowledge, of understanding of clinical therapeutics, yet we hardly, we need to go through a physician. So I found that to be extremely interesting. But so there were like, I would see anywhere from 150 to 200 refugee patients a day. The usual, AmCare stuff that we do from day to day, but it was fast and furious because the volume. I mean, when I was doing my training in Northeastern, I would get anywhere 4 to 5 patients a day, maybe. But overseas was completely different. And then at the end of the day, there will always be a few girls, like they would stick around for hours just to get my attention. And it wasn't about care. It wasn't about like they were hurting. It was more about like, she's like me, because I spoke their language, I looked like them. And that's what I talk about when I present the whole concept of community representation and diversity. It's really important to have diversity in practice setting. It's important to have diversity in leadership. It's important to have diversity in all various aspects of healthcare because of this concept of community representation, that as a little girl or as a a female of marginalized community, if you see yourself, like if you see someone that looks like you in a position of leadership or in a high rank, you'd be like, oh my God, I could be her one day. And that's the importance. So when they saw me, it just with a white coat speaking English, and speaking their language at the same time, it just gave them hope, I would say, because Iraq has gone through so much over the years. So I would say that was definitely my favorite part. But how did I end up being there? I still don't understand how, but I knew I could be of help, and I knew they needed help. So I would say that's how it started. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I totally get that. It's, when you see somebody that looks like you and being in a position that
Mhm.
you aspire to be, that gives you the permission to,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, it gives
Exactly.
you like not only the hope, but the permission to dream that and
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I would say that. Mhm.
yeah, I want to also go back. So after you graduated Northeastern, did you go through the residency that you mentioned, the ambulatory care, or was it part of your training?
It was part of my training, I would say. I did not do a residency, and that was another reason why my parents were just so concerned. Like I didn't, I just, and again, I am not belittling. This is just me. I just didn't think I needed additional rotations. I've already gone through a phenomenal liberal arts program that exposed me to the whole world. I went through Northeastern, I was already exposed to two co-ops, and that's what Northeastern is famous for. And then I did like 6 additional rotations. So I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. And the way I treated rotations was more of like a process of elimination. I don't want this, I don't want this, until I figured out like, well, I don't want anything, you know. So yeah, that was my experience with rotations and yeah, co-ops.
Yeah, I could totally relate too about like going through so many programs, and then also when you say you don't see yourself practicing in the available fields, even though there's a wide variety available for us, sometimes you just really don't connect with any of it, and it could be really confusing. And
Mhm.
that's why it's so nice to look up to people that have gone where you want to go so that
Exactly.
it's possible.
Ex- Exactly.
Yeah, so I love that story, can relate so much. So can you mention what is that co-op? I don't think I heard of that.
So co-op basically, the way Northeastern does, and that's why they're so respected nationwide, is and when a student graduates from Northeastern, they already have 2 to 3 experiences under their belt. They're different from it's not like, okay, well, I need to apply for a job and practice as an intern. You are guaranteed a 3-month full pay job, and that is a perk that you get with Northeastern. And being in Boston, you usually get trainings by Harvard Hospital, so you can't get any better than that, right? So I know I trained at Dana-Farber, which is one of the biggest Harvard training hospitals, and did co-ed clinic, and then I was also practicing as part-time in CVS. So Northeastern has a very, very good relationship with the institutions in the area. They treat medicine as their biggest ally, and that's something I loved about them. It's the relationships that they actually utilize to get all their students. And my class was not small. It was like I want to say 85, if I'm not mistaken. And almost everybody was guaranteed a job. And
Wow,
so we will alternate. We didn't have semesters consecutively. One semester will be classes, one semester will be a co-op, and then back to classes, then back to co-op. So it was just basically you learn, you apply, you learn, you apply. And I thought that was really, really interesting. So I like that about them. Yeah.
that's really cool. So basically, it's a 6-year PharmD program, right? And you have the IPs and the APIs, but you have additional co-op experiences that are paid.
Correct. Correct. But I remember I did the bachelor, so mine was 4 years.
Okay, got it.
But instead of having the summers off, I was taking classes in the summer because a semester was dedicated to a co-op. Because remember, we would alternate one semester with a co-op. Yeah.
Oh, that's really fascinating.
Yeah. That's something I liked about Northeastern. I think they still do that. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I remember I looked into Northeastern, but I decided to stay in New York. Um,
Yeah.
but so after you decided to go to Iraq, right? And packed up your suitcases, did you have a job already lined up there, or did you just walk into a clinic and offer your services?
I walked pretty much just randomly. I didn't have a job. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I pretty much went and made a business case for myself. And being me, like the youngest, the most ambitious, the faculty, they started dumping all these classes they did not want to teach. Like I had to tell people that I hated physical chemistry, and then I ended up teaching physical chemistry. I kid you not. And it was only during teaching that I learned, I'm like, oh, this class is actually fascinating. But I
Yeah.
hated it when I was in Agnes Scott, right? When I was doing my undergrad. Uh, because if you don't know it, I don't know how you can teach if you don't understand the concept. So you have to teach yourself first, understand it, and that's how it comes out naturally. So that's what I did. I taught in pharmacy school there and medical school. I would round in the hospital with the physicians, and I remember drawing the whole kinetics of insulin. And then they would look at me. They're like, "Are you sure you're a pharmacist? You know more than we do." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is what they teach us in the U.S. Because again, pharmacists don't learn the basic clinical stuff there. It's very admin. But when I was teaching them the kinetics and how you need to alter, the dose based on the diet, they were just fascinated. Like, so much, I'm like, this is just basic. So yeah, I just walked in. It's the beauty about medicine is anywhere you go to in the world, medicine is taught in English. So I think that was something that kind of helped me out.
Wow.
So yeah, English, everybody speaks English in the Middle East. I mean, not everybody. Everybody in the medical field speaks English. So yeah, I went to medical school, and I would say the English kind of helped. But I told them that I can teach any class they want. I did know that they were really, really interested in transitioning to PharmD. So that actually played out really well in my case. And then I also kind of just walked and met the director of the diabetes, and I told him, it looks like you guys need some help. I can do this. But the next thing I realized, they were handing me EKGs. I'm like, no, no, no. That's not what I that's not what I meant. I can't diagnose, but that's how it started, I would say. I just put myself out there, and I made a business case. And that's what I tell residents and students. You're not limited to community or hospital. You can do so much. And I think this in a way kind of benefits me, because when students and residents go through my rotation, I assist in the roadmap of what they want to do. Everybody has a talent, everybody has a creativity, but they just need that little bit of a guidance as to what is it that you have, and how can you use it in a way to get you where you need to be. And the fact that I was clueless, and I'm usually very open about it, it helped me in a way to assist my students and residents. Yeah.
You were open to opportunities.
Definitely, definitely. And it's all about making a business case for your skill sets. It really is. How do you present yourself? What values do you bring? And how can you make a difference? Um, and that's a universal rule, I would say. So, and once you have that, I think everybody's just willing to kind of open up to you. Yeah. At
Yeah.
least that has been the case. Yeah.
So I'd love to know what you do now currently at APhA, if
Mhm.
your position has shifted over these 7 years at all, and what is your rotation like that you mentioned, and what are your other duties?
So the beauty of association management, I would say, is you create your own job. And I remember my supervisor 8 years ago, when she was trying to hire me, she said, I know your job description looks boring, but knowing you, I know you're going to change it. And she was right. And one thing I tell people is that you always want to hire for the attitude. Don't hire for skills. And that's something they tell me, well, how can we make sure diversity, equity, and inclusion when we hire candidates? Look for attitude, don't look for skills, because skills is easily measurable. You have BCACP, you have NBA, you have I don't know what, but that does not determine attitude. Attitude is hard to change. um, so I would say she took me because she knew I put myself out there and I was flexible. And in the association management world, politics is huge. And you work with so many different personalities, and it's a bit chaotic. The world of nonprofit is a bit chaotic, but there is a benefit with that. When there is chaos, something good comes out of that, out of chaos. When there's too much system and too many metrics, it's like it becomes very black and white, that you have to do it my way or highway. But in the world of nonprofit, because it's a little bit chaotic, because everybody goes into the nonprofit with passion, and a lot of time passion kind of causes lots of friction, right? But something good comes out of that. And I think that is what benefited me long term, that I was able to study the environment, and I still do, because things change on a daily basis, right? And based on my understanding of the environment, I was able to create a different job experience for myself. Yes, I still do what I was hired to do, but I would say over the years I've added um, to what I was offered to. Like, I created new conferences, I created new ideas, broaden on the whole topic. Like when I first started, for example, there was a lot of emphasis on therapeutic, but that is something you would assume pharmacists have mastered at. We focus more on things that involves human skills now. How to hold a tough conversation, for example, when it comes to substance use. So it needed a lot of studying and a lot of patience, a lot of observation and understanding to see what members want and what members struggle with, and then a bit of creativity as to how you can package their need in a way that is deliverable and that fulfills their needs. So yet it has evolved and it continues to evolve, because who would have thought we would be in a pandemic in 2020? Yeah.
So how has that changed your role?
In a good way, I would say. In a good way, it has doubled to tripled my work responsibilities.
Wow.
But I would say I've grown because I have partnered with PGY2 residency sites where I get every 6 weeks, I get a PGY2 resident. And that's an understanding I got from that Airbnb lady that I stayed with in Cuba, that they get my skill sets and they help me with my job. So these PGY2 come and spend 6 weeks with me and they do the work with me. And for a thank you, they learn my skill sets in 6 weeks. So yes, it's grown a lot. We touch on so many topics, but topics that I've always been confident that it pushes the profession forward. So when you have a passion, it means creating more work, but that work translates to more workload for you. So so the change has been good, but it's just been, you just have to be quick. You have to be really, really quick, because pharmacy has become so multi-specialty now, and it's hard to keep up with so many things going on at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So are the residents coming to your site physically on location, or is everything remote now?
They used to. Yes, everything has been remote. The students have been remote, residents have been remote, everything has been, because I am remote. I'm working from home. So yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
what does your day-to-day look like? Can you give us a brief rundown of a day in your work life?
Yeah, so day to day is research is key in my job. I like to read a lot in my free time, and I also read during work, because I need to know what guideline is out. I need to know what governor passed with legislation. I need to know what governmental institutions are up to, what the needs are of pharmacists. So that requires a lot of reading. So environmental scan. So I would say 30% of my job is just reading and looking at the environment. And then once I have that understanding, is it depends on the time of the year. So if you ask me now, we just finished up our biggest event of the year, annual meeting. So now I am working on APhA, Institute on Substance Use Disorder. So basically, I'm developing everything on substance use, like things on shame, on codependency, on family dynamics, things like that. Just because we're getting ready to have a big, symposium on substance use disorder. So research, develop sessions, work, talk to speakers, hear about their experiences, and then also identify new speakers, review their content. So everything that is in line with the needs of our members, I would say. But for me to know that, I need to research a lot. I need to do surveys, evaluate the surveys, analyze the data. So it's something that is very diverse. It's not the same over and over and over. It changes from day to day. Yeah.
So do you have like specific goals and project and deadlines, but then it's up to you to, create a workflow around that and get it done?
Yeah. So like for APhA Institute on Substance Use Disorder, like I just emailed all my speakers that their slides are due by April 15th, for example. And then by April is when I'm going to go in. I have all their slides. I review, provide comments. So yeah, there are hard due dates, but there's also that flexibility of me doing research, because we also do member benefit webinars on the site. We do print pieces, we do quizzes. So it's just, I don't wait until last minute. I give myself a lot of room, because if I start early, it just gives me I just can't think creative when I'm under pressure.
Mm.
And if I'm a last minute person, that means I'm putting myself under a lot of pressure. So I try to give myself um, enough time where I'm able to think and research and read, and run my ideas by some of the best experts in the country. Hey, I read X, Y, and Z. What are your thoughts? Do you think this is something that we should do? Because again, I haven't been practicing for 7 years. So I don't have that patient interaction experience. I've been in association management. So that's how it is. It's a little different, but um, I would say it changes from day to day, but we do have goals that we need to meet. We have due dates that we need to respect, and we have to get back to our experts as well.
Yeah, sounds super dynamic.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
there's a lot to do and it gives you that creative push, like you said.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of take a step back sometimes and give yourself the space in which to be creative, but then you have a container for, due date
Yeah.
free things to have.
Yeah. I would agree. I would agree. Yeah. It's a mix
Yeah.
of both. Yeah. Yeah.
So what is like your primary role there? Is it to create content for education for
Mhm.
other pharmacists?
Yes, but that is it's a bit complex because a lot of things that dictate education, legislation, environment, state board of pharmacy requirements, state legislation. So you need to understand everything, because the thing that drives my job is gaps in knowledge. So you, as a pharmacist, you come to me and you say, I have the guideline by CDC just came out, and I just feel like it's a little confusing. The light bulb goes off in my brain. I'm like, oh, that's a gap. If they're struggling with this, that means we need to do a training. So I jump on opportunities immediately. And over so many years, I've gotten good where there are opportunities I just jump on, and there are opportunities where like, let me give it some thought, or let me run it by the advisory board. Advisory board are basically those people with not with, I mean, yeah, everybody has credential, but they have to have practice experience. They're practicing what they're preaching from day to day with patients. So I run my thoughts by them, and just to get a validation, is this something we should really do? So but I would say gap analysis drives 90% of what I do for APHA from day to day. Yes, it's education, but a lot of things, the whole environment dictates what type of education we need to develop. One thing has been happening lately a lot is the whole transition from in-person to digital and virtual. What does that translate? And I know personally for me is, I don't have kids, but I have a dog, and I cannot stay on the computer for hours just to listen to a speaker, for example. So we've tried to limit our sessions, like let's say 2 hour sessions, we've cut them to 1 hour, 30 minutes to 1 hour maximum, again because the environment. If there is a legislation, for example, where HIV AIDS is a national epidemic, and if HHS happens to make a mandate where all pharmacies in the country need to prescribe PrEP and PEP. Well, we are not prescribers, right? But all of a sudden we have a prescribing role, which means I need to jump in and develop an outline and recruit best of the best in the country with HIV expertise to develop a training on how to train pharmacists to prescribe a service that they're not. Because again, it's new. It's new. When it's new, it means it's a gap in knowledge. So we need to train them to be prepared for whatever that is new in the environment. So yeah.
So would you say that most of the education is for continuing education purposes? And was it only for APHA members?
It's for both. It's for both. It's for members and non-members. We get pharmacists from China. We get pharmacists from every part of the world. But I would say we do continuing education, and we do um, non-continuing. But I would say me as Helen, I only oversee continuing education products, just
Got it.
because I don't have the bandwidth to see other tools, and other departments manage that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's
Yeah.
a lot of work. So you're
Yes.
basically like keeping up with the current guidelines and environment in
Mhm.
order to create the standards for education you'd like to see in the pharmacy school curriculum and continuing education.
Correct, correct. Except what we try to develop is complementary. It's not a redo of pharmacy school, it's a complementary. Um, and I know one thing, for example, like I was talking about earlier, the human skills. It's something that we don't do enough of in pharmacy school. So that is something I'm constantly, there is like, gosh, like at least 20 sessions just on human skills every annual meeting, just because we need it. And it's a little bit interesting because when you develop a session on diabetes update, for example, and you have the session scheduled against a session that requires human skills, you have 500 pharmacists show up to diabetes, and you have maybe 20 to 30 pharmacists show up. But I'm like, we've had enough diabetes in pharmacy school. But it's we're just wired with hard skills. It's fascinating. Yeah, but that is something I would say, content that complements what we've learned in pharmacy school, not necessarily every do. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you inject that content back to pharmacy schools, or do pharmacy schools like come to you for advice on anything?
They do, and that is something that APhA does. Like we partner with schools of pharmacy where they have their students take all our trainings, like the immunization, the diabetes. And I don't know if you've taken immunization when you were a pharmacy student, but almost any resident or student comes to me, they're like, "Oh yeah, I've taken immunization."
Yeah.
So yeah, if there are trainings that we have, and some school needs who've gone through the training when they were a student themselves, and granted we update these trainings because science is evolving, right? They'd be like, you know what, I was really impressed, I would love for us to partner with you guys so our students could take the same training like I did years ago. So yeah, so we partner with schools of pharmacy where their students take our programs, um, you know to
Yeah.
get their educational needs. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what would your number one advice be for other pharmacists or pharmacy students in terms of expanding their career to the next level?
um Gosh, I would say not to be so concerned if you find yourself in a situation where you don't know where you want to go next. At least that itself was an asset in my case. Um, have a hard look at have a hard look as what is your purpose, what is your why, and then look at your strength. Don't focus on your weaknesses, because we are humans. The first thing we think of, I'm like, oh my God, I am not good in this. What
Yeah.
are you good at? Forget the weaknesses, right? And as a mentor, I always try to focus on the strength, and not nitpick on things that you did X, Y, and Z. They look at your strength, look at your why. It is okay to be lost. It's okay. We've all been there. We've all been there. I mean, struggle is a wisdom. That's where wisdom comes from. We struggle, we suffer, we fail, we pick ourselves up again, we fail again, and that's normal. I failed in my life multiple times, and that's okay. But that's where the learning comes from. But I think a lot of residents and students come to my site thinking that after a PGY2, a site should be already flourished for them. And I think it's the expectation that they have. And when the expectation is not there, once they're out in the world, that is when they get disappointed. So manage your expectation, know your why, focus on your strength, and it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. Again, I'm talking from someone who is very business oriented. Um, you cannot encourage innovation when mistakes are like a no-no. For you to be innovative, it means you need to be willing to take risk, right? And when you take risk, it means there's a chance that you might fail because you're taking a risk, right? And that is what I encourage them in my site. It's okay to make mistakes. We're not going to reprimand you, and I want them to make mistakes, and if they don't, it means they're too scared to put themselves out there. So those are a few things I would recommend. Now, don't take risk with patients' life, but take a risk in the world of business, because business is all about taking chances. But you need to know your why. Your risk needs to go along your why, and I think you'll be in good hands if you do that. Yeah.
And what would you say is success in the pharmacy field, like in a pharmacy professional career? What do you define success as?
So it all depends who you talk to, honestly. Success to me is about self-actualization. It's not about a title, it's not about a ranking, because we all know there are different criteria for ranking and there are marginalized people. But I would say success for me is when you wake up every day, you're inspired and you look forward to what you do. And so that to me, that's what success is. It's doing something that you feel like it serves a great cause. Because when you do that, you're not only mentally healthier, but you're also you feel like you're part of something bigger than you. And to me, that is what success is if it results in a ranking, why not? But if you're in a high ranking and you're miserable, then I don't know how much joy is in that success, right? So it's all about being fulfilled, being satisfied of what you do, and being part of a great cause out there in the world. Yeah.
I love that definition so much. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing. Now, we only have a couple minutes left. Can we go into a super rapid fire round?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
What would be your number one tip for people to lead a healthier life right now?
Well, number one concern is anxiety now, right? Um, Number one tip, I would say, with anxiety not being avoidable, it will be a short term recommendation. Get involved, moving, I would say, move. Yeah.
Move your body.
Yes, move your body. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because anxiety is not avoidable, unfortunately. Yeah. We're all under stress. Yeah.
But also, when you move into your body, you're not so much in your mind anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Just like a distraction from one
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, what is your favorite food?
Oh my. Favorite food, I would say my mom's traditional food. It's called dolma. It's great stuffed grape leaves. My favorite. Yes.
Oh, I have something similar in my.
Yes. So it's very international. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, number three, besides traveling, what is your favorite hobby?
Writing. Writing. Yeah. I would say writing.
Writing, yeah. So I'll share your blog so everybody can see your
Yes.
beautiful writing. I read it and it's amazing, super interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and advice and for all the work that you do. And I hope to see you soon.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.